Hi and welcome to another video. So in this video we are talking front end, and when you hear people talk about front end, React comes into mind. So right here I'm on the reactjs.org, and today we're going to be exploring, or we are going to be starting out with React. So a while ago I posted a video on adding product variations to the cart, and in this video I was using React as the front end and with Django as my backend, and I got a comment of how someone was asking how can we integrate React with Django, and I figured that it is time that I did a video on how to integrate React with Django. So when you ask, I provide, and in this video what you're going to do is to just kick off everything or start off everything to do with React. So what is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces, and yeah, that's what it is. So I'm here on the home page, and everything here is pretty declarative, or it is pretty self-explanatory, and they have some good documentation here. So let's start off. And React is, or what they're saying is that it makes it painless to create interactive UIs, design simple views for each state in your application, and React will efficiently update and render just right components when your data changes. And I believe that is why it was called React. And in React, there is something we call the state. So whenever there are changes to the state, React immediately updates to React, or React in quotes, to those changes that we have in the state. And those changes are something maybe to insert something to the DOM, or maybe remove something to the DOM, or maybe do something or fetch some data from a remote endpoint or something like that. So when you're doing components, you can build encapsulated components that manage their own state, that is state components with state, or stateless components that do not have state, and then compose them to make complex user interfaces. Now, since the component logic is written in JavaScript instead of templates, you can easily pass rich data through your app and keep state out of the DOM. So the DOM is basically the document object model. So in here we have several examples. So we start off with a simple component. Now, with React, there are these specific components that we use to render out data. So React components, they implement a render method that takes input data and returns what to display. And if you're wondering where I'm getting what I'm saying, is I'm just reading all through this documentation that we have here. So let's get it right. So, and just to mention, a good way that I find to learn this if you are a complete beginner is, on my opinion, to learn through, let's say, a project approach, and to keep the documentation side by side. So if you get stuck, don't keep on going to the tutorial and referring back to the tutorial. You can just go ahead on the official site of that specific website, and there you'll find numerous resources, and maybe that problem that you're stuck with already, there is always a solution. So there is always a solution, and you will find it. So this example that we have here uses an XML like syntax, and it is called JSX. And you might think that this is actual HTML, but it is not. So it is what we call JSX. So input data that is passed into the component can be accessed by the render and via these props. So in here we have this component, and it is a class which extends just React.component, and we have the render method, and in here we are just returning a simple div, and this is the div that we know from HTML. So inside the div we just render out hello this.props.name. And props is something, or props is short form for properties, and properties are just the parameters, or let's just say the properties that you pass inside the components, and you can access them downwards. So let's say you have a parent component and you have child components, you can pass down the properties through those child components, or from the parent component to the child components. So as you can see, hello user, or hello this.props.name, it results, or it renders out this result here, hello Taylor. So inside here, as I told you, we can have a state to our component, or we can have a stateless component. So this is a stateful component, and inside the component we can add in our state. And as you can see, we have class timer, which extends React that component, which is the same thing up top here. And inside there, we pass in the constructor method and pass in the props, which are our properties, and we just call super and pass in the props there, and key or add in the state to application. So inside this application here, as you can see, we have this timer here, which is just a function or a method called tick, which sets the state, and it is just setting the state of seconds plus 1. So initially you start with the state as being setting the seconds as being to 0, and as you continue along you add or increase the seconds with 1. As you can see here on the right hand side, the seconds are increasing by 1 each time. Now, as you can see, we have several methods here: component did mount, we have component will unmount, and in the component did mount is a method that we call, or what is specified in the component did mount is it is what we want to happen whenever the component is mounted, or that is whenever the component is inserted into the DOM. Now, in the component did mount is what we specify what we want to do or to happen when the component is removed from the DOM or cleared out of the DOM. And in here, when the component is mounted, we set the interval, and we set that interval as in here we have this set interval method here, and it is just calling that function and setting the increment of the seconds after every 1 second. So inside the component will unmount, we clear the interval, and we clear the interval of the state as well. So, and then we have our render method, which will just return this second, and it will return this state second, and this changes dynamically as React updates the changes to our set. So as you can see, the seconds are still rising. Now we have React DOM.render, and we render the timer, which is the name of our component, and that's it. So for a basic simple application, now you'll find this anywhere on YouTube, on every site. The simplest application to start with is a simple to-do app. Now, what I can urge you to do, or what I can urge you if you are a complete beginner, is to start off with these simple applications, and once you get the hang of it, you can continue to add more juice to your application. So you can maybe add notifications to your to-do app and stuff like that. So inside the to-do app, and this is what it does. So if you can key anything and add that to-do, now you see the to-do is added right there. So we can walk through or write through the code through this. So we have a simple class to do, then it extends React component. We have the constructor there passing in the props, then we set the state, and we have, so this is a stateful component, and we have several methods, and we are just using the constructor to bind those methods to our class. So inside the render method, we have, of course, this h3 tag, and this is some JSX, and it's not HTML. So we have to-do tag there. Then we have a to-do list, which will have the items that we are outputting the items. So every time you output that item and you add that item, it is outputted inside the to-do component. And of course, we have this form here. It just has one input and one button, and the form, if we submit that form, it will call this.handle submit. And handle submit, it is a method that we specify on the class itself, and this.handle submit, we are just binding that method there. Now, if you are carrying out a complex application, or if you have some backend that takes care of this, such as, let's say, Django, on the handle submit method, it is where you want to specify methods that will post the data to the backend, or maybe fetch some data from the backend. So we'll see about that as we proceed along. And on the input, This is just a basic input. We have the ID of the input. We can have the name of that input, the value of the input, and the value of that input should come from the state itself. So on the input, another special method that you need to define on the input is an onChange method. And onChange is basically what needs to happen whenever there are changes to this input method. So this handle change method, it is also a method that you can define on the class. And as you can see, they are binding it as well. So the handle change method, what it does is it sets the state, and we set the state of the text. And inside the state, if we go back, we had text as initially blank. So whenever we change, or whenever there are changes to this input field, the value of this input field, it is set to the text. The value of the text in the state, it is set to the value of the input field. So that is basically what this set state means here. Now on the handle submit, what we do, or what the method does, is it takes in an event, and you can go ahead and use arrow functions for this. So first things first, we prevent the default, which it is preventing the form from submitting by default, and we check if the length of the text in the state is equal to 0, then we return nothing, and we have this constant of new item there, which is coming from the state, which is just the state, and we give an ID to that specific item as just date.now, or you can do let's say new date. So you can do new date like that. And so we are adding a specific ID to a specific item, and what happens is, if the length of the text is less than 0, we return nothing else. We set the state of that items, and so the items, it will be state.items. Then we add, or we concat with the new item. Then text, after we set the state, we then return or set back the state of the text back to the empty string that it was. And this is just the to-do list, which is this component here. If we add, this is the to-do list there that renders out the several to-dos. And then we have the React DOM render method. Now, as we go downwards, we have components using external plugins, and as you can see here, we are being told that React allows you to interface with other libraries and frameworks. This example uses Remarkable, an external markdown library, to convert the text area's value in real time. So for example, if we type in anything, we see the value of the text field is, or the text area is converted into the output in real time. And as we delete, also we see the changes as they happen, of course. Now, enough of the talking. Now let's see how we can get started. And to get started, you can go and check out their GitHub link. And in here, as you can see, React was developed by Facebook. You can go ahead and blah blah blah, read through all these. Now about this, React is a declarative, efficient, and flexible JavaScript library for building user interfaces. That is what we saw up here. So this is what it is told, we are being told there. So as you can see, there are 131 releases, so meaning that this repository, it is actively maintained. As you can see, there's this package that was just maintained an hour ago, 7 days ago, and it is being actively maintained. We have several contributors, and just over, or just short of 1500 contributors. And in here we have this simple documentation that you can go through, and some of these we have already gone through. And what I wanted to touch on is the installation part. So React has been designed for gradual adoption from the start, and you can use as little as or as much React as you need. So it really depends on what you want to achieve with React. Now, if you use only online playgrounds, you can get the taste of React just to get a simple overview of what React is, and you can use this command, add React to website, as a script tag in just 1 minute. And what you're going to be focusing on is create a new React app if you're looking for a powerful JavaScript toolchain. Now, this documentation, there's quite a lot in here that I'm not going to go through it. You can go through it as yourself, and this is as a challenge. And you can see React is MIT licensed. So enough of the talking. Now we can start on the real thing. So to start off, of course, I have Visual Studio Code. It is my code editor that I've been using for quite a while. Now, in here, there's a lot. There's quite a lot. If I can just zoom in now, if I put this on the side so that we can see it as well. Now, as you can see, the first step is I changed into my desktop. If I can just minimize that, I changed it to my desktop, and I created a new folder or a new directory. I called it React, and what I'm doing is I'm using npx create react app test. Now, what is this you're seeing here? Now, this is a command, a custom command that is initiated when you want to create a new React app from scratch. So create React app will create a new app, and the name of that app you pass in. The name, it can be anything. Let's say hello, whatever. So npx create React app. And if you are doing this for the first time, what you'll need to do is to have Node installed. So if you go to node.js.org and you don't have Node installed, first things first, make sure you have Node installed. And for this, what you want to do is to download the installer that works for your operating system. So I'm already on Windows, as you can see, it's prompted here. So I'm on Windows, and what you want to do is you can download this one, which is recommended for most users. Although you can go with the current version, but it has some latest features and it is still on trial. So you just go with the recommended for most users. So you can go through all the installation steps, and once you have everything set up completely, now you can go back, or you can come back to where we are right now. So I created a new React app and called it test, and it went ahead and did the magic and installed everything and and as you can see right here, we get this little documentation. So inside the directory that we've created, we can run several commands. One of them is npm start, which starts the development server, npm run build, which bundles the app into static files for production. We have npm test, which starts the test runner. And if you're coming from Django Python or from any language, so if you want to do tests, you just run npm test, and npm is short for Node Package Manager. So npm run inject removes this tool and copies build dependencies, configuration files, and we suggest that you begin by typing cd test and then npm start. So meaning npm start will just start the server. So I have that app open in Visual Studio Code, and we can go through everything that is there. And this is the test app or the test directory that was created. You can toggle the terminal there. Now we have our terminal, so close that, and inside here we have this test directory, and inside the test directory there are a few directories. We have node modules, and this directory we don't really touch. These are just some dependencies and modules that come pre-installed. Now we have this public folder here, and inside here we have the favicon, which you'll see in a moment, and we have index.html. Now this is just a basic HTML file. If I can just toggle the terminal off, and it has just some basic comments here. So we can start off by removing everything that we don't need. So, and this is just a basic HTML. So make sure I remove everything correctly, and everything in here, if you have been doing web dev for, let's say, a week or so, you will be familiar with everything that is in here. So we have the head tag, and we have the body tag, and we have a div with ID of root. And yeah, this is just everything that is simplified. And we go along, can close that, and inside the src or the source folder, it is where the magic happens. So we have several files, app.css, and this is just a basic CSS files. We have app.js, and in here you can, or don't get intimidated by anything or everything that is in here, but it is just simple JSX. It is not HTML as well. So we have the div. And another thing with React, in HTML, you are used to setting the class with you're used with the class attribute. So inside React, we have all class switches to, so we would have something like class being equal to something if we are doing simple HTML. But in JSX or in React, we have class name. So we have the class name of app, and we make sure that we import our CSS files. So if we go to our CSS file, we have our class name of app, and this is everything that pertains to just a simple CSS file. So inside there, we have an image of tag, logo, and we can get rid of everything so that we can start with everything from scratch with anything. Or what we can do is let's say we can delete everything, so I can copy everything and delete everything so that we start everything from scratch. And with React, or what I'll do is, before we delete everything, I'll try to show you how this looks like when you run this app the first time. So let me bring back everything like that, so forgive me for that. Now let's go on. We have app.test.js, and this is where you define the test for your React.js application, and that is an advanced topic beyond the scope of this introduction video. So we have the index.css, and this is just a normal CSS file. We have the body tag there. We specify the margin at 0. We specify the font type, font smoothing, and everything like that. And for the code, we specify the font family. Okay, so index.css and index.js, and in index.js we import our app, which is this app.js. So we'll make sure we import our app, and we'll see this syntax in a moment. So we import our app and we render our app. So react dom.render, then we render our app. If you remember the documentation, we saw how we can render that. Then we have our logo, which is just a simple logo that you'll see in a moment. Then service worker and setup.js. Service worker is if you want this app to be available in offline mode, but we're not going to be doing that. And since it is an advanced topic beyond the scope of this introductory video. Now, so we've done public source. We can close off these files, close off source. Now we have package.json. Now, inside the package.json, it is where you specify what you need, or it is where what you need is specified. And inside here, we have the name of our application, which is just test. We have our first version, set it to private, and inside here we have these dependencies, and these are the dependencies that come with the installation of our app. And if we install any other dependencies, now we'll see all those dependencies getting added in here. Now we have the several scripts tag, and inside here there we have start, we have build, we have test and eject. And as if you remember, those are what we were told when we did create React app. So we have ESLint configurations, and we have a development like that, and browser list, of course. Now inside the package log.json, now inside here there is quite a lot that we don't need or we don't touch, but the important file is the package.json. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's look at our readme.md file. And if you're on Visual Studio Code, what you can do is click on this icon here. As you can see, as I hover on it, it tells me that open preview. So open preview to the side. Now this is the preview of this readme file here. And this is just an extension of the documentation that you can go through and you can read through it, but most of it we've already done. So no need to worry. And so let's start. And as you remember, the first thing we want to cd into our test app. So we are inside our test app, and what we need to do is to just type in npm start. Now this command, it is going to start off the development server, and this will take some time depending on your machine. So I'm really running on a slow machine here, but that's not the point. So I'll go ahead and pause the video and we'll return when. Now if we come back and check what happened, now that took a while since I'm running on a slow machine here. So we can view test in the browser, and now if we are on a local machine, it is http localhost port 3000, and on my network, now this is the IP address of the current network that I'm using. And note that development build is not optimized. So to create a production build, we use npm run build, and we'll see that in a second. So if we go to the browser, now we get this at localhost port 3000. Now we have this React app. Now what happened? So if you can just let's do this on the side here. So if I can put that on the side and do it with that, and maybe make it a little bigger like that, so that once we work, we can see the changes as they appear. So inside the test folder, one thing I failed to mention is the git ignore, and this git ignore it just specifies what we need to ignore if we are pushing this code to GitHub. And what you see, what it is ignoring is the node modules, and these node modules, it is a huge file, and you don't want committing everything that is in there to the GitHub. So let's start off with. Now to start off with, if we go to source and we go to our app.js, I can toggle off everything like that. Now we see this div with a class name of app, then we have header, class name of app header. Check that. If we go to app.css, we have a app header. We specify the background color as just that, which is this background color. Now then we have our logo with the image source of logo, and we have edit CSR, edit source like that. So another cool thing with React is you remember I mentioned that whenever there are changes to the state, if we're using a stateful component, React automatically updates to those changes in the state, meaning React automatically reacts to those changes. So if we type anything here, let's say hello, like that, and if we save everything, now you see React automatically updates those changes or reacts to those changes. So this is what we call hot reloading. So there's hot reloading when you're doing React, so you don't have to worry about anything. So, and you don't have to refresh, so it automatically refreshes everything. So let's get started, and we'll start by removing everything and let's say doing everything from scratch. So I'll copy everything and get rid of everything, and inside the, I can just open this up. Now inside the app CSS, I'll copy everything and delete everything. Inside index, I'll select, highlight everything and delete everything. So we don't need that index.css, so I can go ahead and delete it. We don't need any logos, so we are starting this from scratch. And make sure you know what you are deleting. So inside the public folder, I'll also delete what you don't need. We don't need any logos, any icons, and I'll also delete all those files, and I'll just remain with the index, or what you know, an HTML file. So close that, and we'll come back to that in a moment. So remember, don't touch the node modules unless you start running into undesirable issues. So to start off with, you can go to the extensions marketplace, and inside the extensions marketplace, you can search for React, and there's a quite handy extension that comes with Visual Studio Code that enables you to write React code faster. So inside here, as you can see, I have this extension here React Redux, ES7, React Redux, GraphQL, React Native scripts. So go ahead and install that extension. As you can see, it has an update. So I'm going to install that update, and I'll go ahead and reload my Visual Studio Code. So that reload happened. So make sure you have that extension installed correctly. Now, what this extension is, or what this extension enables you to do, is to come up with the syntax of creating, let's say, a function-based component or a class-based component. So to do that, you can just type in RCE or RFC, and it appears that it is not loaded correctly, but the syntax looks like this. So first things first, we start by importing React from and React. Now, if we go back to our package.json, inside our dependencies, we installed React version 16.13.1. So that is what we are importing with this statement here, and we terminate off that statement with a semicolon there. Now, if there is JSX involved, you must always start with this expression here. So to create off a class-based component, we start with a class, and let's say call it home, which will extend let's say React dot component. Now this is how the syntax goes, and inside there we have the render method that you saw, and inside the render method we have the return method. Now inside the return we can return anything, mainly JSX. So I'll change this to use 2 spaces, and I'll convert this file to be sorry about that. So this needs to be JavaScript React. So I'll save everything to have everything formatted correctly, and if you don't have auto save and format, you can just check your settings, and let's say format. If you check format, make sure you have format on paste or on save or on type, basically what works great for you. So make sure you have those there. Now inside the return statement, we can return anything, basically any JSX. We can return a h1 tag that says let's say this is the, and we're getting this little error here, and we are saying that an expression is required. So I can just clear out everything and start off again. Now and try using the extension there. So as you can see, if I type RCE tab and hit enter, or RCE and hit tab, you see we get this markup here. And what I got wrong, it was this parenthesis. It was supposed to be parenthesis, not the curly braces. So make sure you get the syntax right. So, and to get a function-based component, it is just RFC. So RFC tab, then you get this little nice looking let's say markup there. So what to do is, if there's JSX involved and you have if there's JSX involved, now we can go ahead and create our class. It was hello. So, and our class is let's say hello, and it extends React.component like that. Then we have that inside there, we have the render method, and inside the render method we have the return and we have the parentheses. So make sure you get those right. Now inside there we can return a h1 tag saying that this is the home page. Now if you remember, inside the documentation that we looked at, there was a method, the React DOM render. Now that method is inside the index.js file. Now if you can go back to our browser, now we see we are getting failed to compile. So if you can just put that there, we're getting this error. It is because we renamed everything completely. So we're going to fix that in a moment. Now if we create that class, we need to export that class so that we can import it inside another component. So we'll export the default as let's say hello. That. Now inside our index.js, we can pretty much we can get rid of index.css. We are not using inside there. We can import, or we can get rid of that. Service worker, we are not dealing with it right now, so we can get rid of it. Now inside here, we need to import our component. Now we can just search for it by typing hello like that, and you can see it is imported from /app. But to get the hang of the syntax, we need to import hello now from and inside the course there, we specify the path to that file, and it is inside the same folder, and we go to /app. So simple as that. And inside there, we render out the hello. So we can copy that and paste it there, and we are rendering out the hello. Now if we come back and check and refresh everything, now if we go back and check our terminal, now we might be getting an issue, but I don't think the server is running. So what we'll start with is, let's say we run the server, so npm start. Our server was down there for a moment, so we'll get the server up now. So also that took a while since I'm running on a slow machine, but if we go back to our local hotspot 3000, we see we get this homepage, and we get that text homepage there. So now if we can go back and let's say change anything, or let's say do a bunch of home pages there, and if we go back and check, now did you forget, or now we're getting this error, passing error, adjacent JSX element must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX element? So we are getting this error because these are completely new elements, or completely they are different elements from each other. So to have them rendered all the same at once, we need a new element, which is, let's say, the div element, and we wrap the div element around everything. So this is not the normal HTML. As in HTML, you'll just render out some bunch of h1 tags stacked on top of each other. So if we go back and check, now we have our home page. So like that. Now this div, we can give it a class name. Let's say this is home page, like that. Now the good thing is styling of this, it is exactly the same as you would for any HTML element. So I'll close off index.js. Now if I can just explain what happened there is we are importing our hello component, and inside the React DOM.render, we are rendering out our component, and we are getting the element by ID of root. Now if we go to our public folder, this is just a plain vanilla JavaScript where we get elements and we manipulate the DOM with some methods like this, get element by ID, and we do those changes. So what we are doing is we are getting this element, this division tag with element of ID of root, and we are rendering out everything inside this element there. So that is what that does. And inside there we have this homepage div with a class of homepage. We can go ahead and style it our way. So we have the homepage. What we can do is, let's say we can say display flex, and we can justify the content center. We can text align center like that, and let's see how that looks like. Now if we come back and check, now nothing is going to do anything, but that division tag, we can do basically the basic styling that we know. So we can specify the width of that div and say the width is 200 pixels, and we can specify margin left as, let's say we can do 50 pixels. So I just want to see if there will be any changes so that you can get the hang of it, and you can go ahead and put in any custom CSS styles that you have. So I'll just do that, margin left as that, and you can do a border and specify that as 1 pixel, solid, and gray, like that. So we have a div of width 200 pixels, or 200 pixels or small. We can do, let's say, 400, and we can have the, let's say, height, which is the same, so 500 pixels, like that. And so we'll have this div which is centered, or more or less with a margin left of, let's say, 50 pixels. So let's see what we've got. Now if we refresh, now we are not getting anything, and it is because if we check class of home page, now this error, it took me a second to try to debug, but it is just a silly mistake that I made, and we didn't import our CSS file. So we need to import, and we import dot slash, and it is our app, so app.css, like that. So we import our CSS styling inside there, and let's see if that renders out correctly. And it's compiling there, so give it time to compile. And the first time when we were doing the display flex, so it was not rendering out because I had not imported the styles. So you get the hang of it. Now we see we get this nice looking div there with the border and with a margin left of, let's say, 50 pixels, like that. So we can go ahead and add in the previous styles and say display flex, and we can justify the content to be center, like that. Oops, so our styling is messed up. Or we can just do text align to be center. Now we have that text centered in that div, which looks nice, and you can go ahead and play around with the styling. You can go ahead and add in the custom styling and everything and that. So basically what I wanted to achieve in this video is just a basic overview or an introduction to React. Now there's a cool thing about React which makes it different from other front-end frameworks like Angular or Vue. Now with React, is it gives you the freedom of, let's say, using third-party libraries. Now one of these libraries that I'm going to introduce you to is Semantic Ui React. Now Semantic UI, I've used it for a bit long time, and I've used it in quite in a lot of the projects that I've undertaken, and it has pretty much worked correctly, or worked fine for me. So I don't really have any issues with Semantic UI, and I'd pretty much recommend it to anyone which is starting out with React. Now Semantic UI saves you the hassle of going or setting up the stylings, as it comes with its own pre-styled components, and you just want to achieve everything faster, or you just want to do anything faster in a limited amount of time. So the place to go to is Semantic UI, in my opinion. Now to get started with Semantic UI, we'll need to install it first, but let's see what Semantic UI has to say about. So if you can go to react.semanticui.com, or just type to just go to Semantic UI React. You just do a Google search of Semantic UI React, and probably the first link is the one that you want. And inside here, we are getting this nice library. This is the official Semantic UI React integration. Now Semantic UI React, the official React integration. Now everything, there's quite a lot in here, but whenever you go onto any site and you're on their documentation part, so the first place you would want to go to is how to get started. Now the first thing is, how do we install Semantic UI? Now Semantic UI provides React components and CSS themes, so we can install the React components and choose a theme and style that can suit our need. So the first thing to do is if we are using yarn, now we can just do yarn add semantic UI React. But since we're using a node package manager, I'll just do npm install. So I'll open another separate terminal window. Since I'm running on a slow machine and I just don't want those files to get, or my browser or my server to get down, so that it really takes quite a lot of time to bring it up. So to install that, we'll just do semantic or npm I dash dash save, or you can just do npm I, then we do semantic UI React. So this is the same thing as yarn add if you are using yarn. So we are using node package manager, so it will be npm I dash dash save, then semantic UI React. Now for the theme, we can choose a theme and a delivery method that suits our need. So I'm going to do with the go with the custom installation. So if you're using yarn, so you can just go ahead and do yarn add semantic UI CSS, and since we're using npm, we'll just go ahead and add also that. And I'm just going to install all of them at once, since I don't want to install them each at a specific time. So this is what you can do. You can go ahead and specify all the packages that you want to install all in one line like this. So we can go ahead and say we want to install Axios, and Axios is a good package that we'll use as we take this project further. So Axios is another package, and we can just do React Router DOM, whatever suits your needs. So the point is you can install all those packages in one single line. So go ahead and hit enter, and as that takes its time to load, we can take a look, or we can explore our app more. So just go ahead and clear out everything. Now if we go to our index app, and you can also get rid of React strict mode, it really doesn't change anything much. So make sure to get rid of that and add a comma there and save everything to have everything formatted correctly. Now if we check, we are seeing that those packages are being installed. Now this will take quite a while, or depending on the machine. So if you really try to understand me, and you'll try to bear with me. So we have the home page there, and you can go ahead and change that favicon there, but I'm not going to do that. So I'll pause this and I'll get back to it when all those packages so we have all that installed correctly. Now as I told you, once you install any packages, if you can go back to your package.json, you see we have those packages added in there. Now we have the semantic UI CSS, we have Axios and their respective versions. So to get started, we can just start by getting our first component from Semantic UI, and it is really simple. The first thing we need to do is to add this import into our index.js file. So let's go to our index.js file, and up top where we are importing everything, we can just import that there. So we're importing Semantic UI CSS there. So we'll have our CSS files. Now if you can just go back and check, we see the styling is great. We have this Roboto font, or it is Montserrat, whatever, I don't know. So to do this, to get any component that you want to render out, so for example, if you just want to render out a card component, so you can hit enter. Now there's a bunch of card components here. You can choose any component that you want. So you can choose a button component. We have these buttons there. So we are going with card, so I'll just go ahead and click our card component, and to render out any card component, all you do is check out the syntax of that card component, and all you need to do is to copy everything. So copy everything like that, and if we come back, and oops, we need to go back to our code. So we need to render out that card component here, so just paste it below there. Now we have these import statements from Semantic UI React, so I'll copy all those, make sure I've pasted them up top there. Now what you need to do is to get our card component, which is this card component there. So instead of returning all those h1s there, or we can just keep one of them, and we can get rid of that and import React. We have our own. So now we are getting this error. If we save everything and go back, so I'll just close that so that it doesn't confuse you, that separate terminal. If we save everything and try to refresh, now we might get an error since we are trying to render out different components. So what we need to do is to wrap all these in a React fragment, and a React fragment is basically an invisible component that enables you to render out multiple components at once. So now, as you can see, we get that card element showing up there. Now the styling isn't great, but you get the idea. So you can import any images and render out those images as well. So we can start by getting rid of the image there. Now we have the card there, and for the card we can add a styling. So, and for in text or inline styling, what we need to do is in HTML, what we do is, let's say we add our style like this, so style, and set it like that. But with React, for inline styling, what we do is we add these double curly braces and specify the styling there, and we can specify our margin left, and as you can see there is camel case, and the parameter that we want is we specify that inside the quotes there, and specify a comma there if we're doing multiple styles. And what we need to do, what we used to do, or what we always do in HTML and CSS is we don't need to specify these quotes there, we just use a semicolon. So we have our margin left as 50 pixels, and as you can see the card is centered correctly in the middle there. So there are multiple components that you can use, and it is just up to you. And as we saw, you can achieve everything and anything with React. It just depends with what you want to achieve with React. So I think this is going to do it for this video. Now in a later video I'll see how we can now if we go back, what I want to show you is how we can integrate this with Django, since this is like a sneak peek of what this series is going to be. I'm going to be releasing a Django React e-commerce website, that on e-commerce website built with Django on the backend and React with the front end. So this is basically a response to one of the comments I received on some of my videos. So inside the React, or inside our root directory, I've created a new folder, or I've created a new directory if you're coming from Django. Now this is just our root directory. Inside there we have our settings, WSGI, blah 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 blah. If you're familiar with Django, you know all this and what they mean. So what I want to do is to show you how we can integrate this with Django and have this served on our backend or on our local host. So for example, if we go to, let's say 127, we want this to be served on the local host port 8000. So to do this, we are going to bundle everything up, and first things first, we'll need to make migrations and create that up. So, or we'll need to handle our backend in a moment. So I'll create a separate window here, and you can go ahead and test out every other component and see how everything functions out. So what I want to do is let's say Python, I can't type today, so Python manage.py, and what we want to do is we want to migrate to get our initials migrations done. So we can migrate like that. And this is just to get our initial migrations done so that when we run our app or we run our server, we don't get those initial errors. So we have those migrations done. And inside here, what we need to do is, if you remember, if we go to the readme.md file, we have these commands npm run build. Now, what run build does is it builds the app for production. So to the build folder, it correctly bundles React in production mode and optimizes the build for best performance. So you can also get more familiar and comfortable with the build command if you get to the documentation. But what you can do at this point is, let's say we can stop the server on the front end there, so we can terminate it, yes, like that. And what you want to do is run npm run build, like that. And you'll see what this does is it creates a new build folder in here so that we can extract all those files. Now inside here, if you run let's say python manage.py run server, so run server like that to get our server running. Now in here we're getting those. So if we click to go to the local host, now this is just the basic view the first time you launch Django for the first time. So this is what you'll get. But what you want is to get this React app being served on the Django local host. Now, as we can see, what that did is it created this build folder. If we check inside the build folder, we have static, and this is just the root to our static files, or this location of our static files, and inside the index.html. Now this is if we save everything to have everything formatted correctly, I'll just let it show the way it is showing like this. Now I don't know why it's doing like this, but there's quite a lot in here that is bundled up together. Now we have this compressed file, we have that file or that React app being inserted into the DOM. So we remember that div with the ID of root. So we have everything inserted there. So we also have that let's say root to our static files. So what you can do is maybe let's say format document so that you can see everything. Now this is what I wanted to show you. Now there's everything here what we specified, and we have our script tag, and yeah, everything. So we can close that. Now what we need to do is, if we go to our backend and we go to our settings, we can make sure that everything is correct. Now we need to tell Django of these static files in here. So our static files folder, it will be inside the build, then we go to static. So we can check, we can add another configuration and say the static underscore, or the static files underscore directories, it is going to be, let's say, os.path.join, and we'll join the base directory with, now we need to specify the root to this static folder. So that is inside test, then build, then we go to static. So if we can close out everything so that we can see it, so that we can see everything correctly, we have our public there, we have our node modules there. Now this needs to be test, then we go to slash build, then slash static. So that will be the complete root to our static files. And I think that is the setting that we need to do for right now, but we'll see how we can add in a lot more. Now let's go to our URLs so that we can add, or we can serve this application on our local machine. So if we go to our URLs, now you can start by getting rid of the comments there. Now we need to import a template view that will be serving this index template here. So from our generic template views, so from let's say django.views.generic, we can import the template view django.views.generic, and it is template view like that. So what we need to do is to add another path. So anything that goes to the root URL, we'll use the template view. Template view dot as underscore view, since it's a class-based view, and we can give it a name of, let's say, just home for now. And probably we can get rid of the name, but we'll just keep it there. So anything that goes to the root URL, we'll use the template view, and inside the template view we can specify the template name. So template underscore template underscore name. It is going to be the complete path to this index HTML file in here. So it is coming off of the test folder, and then we go to the build, then index.html, like that. So let's see how this looks like if we go to our root URLs and refresh. Now we see we are getting this error: template does not exist at test build index.html. Now what we need to do is just a little fix. If we go to our settings, and I forgot to add the root to that directory, so os.path.join, we can join our base directory with our test folder, and then we can go into build like that. So if we are inside the build, that is where we have our index.html. So we can come back and refresh. We're still getting the error. Now I think this error is coming off of the, if you can just check, and it is inside our URLs. So the template name, it was not supposed to be the path, so sorry about that. And this is just the name of the template or the file that you want to render out. So I wasn't careful in passing out or passing in the path to that specific file name. So what we need to do, or what we had to do, is inside the templates we make sure that we specify the correct path to the templates directory, which is this build folder, which will host our template, which is test/build. And once we specify that, Django will know where to look for our templates if we specify the template name as index.html. So it will look for index.html inside the test build folder. So we can come back and check this out, and boom. So here we have our app being served on our local host. Now there's a lot of ways that you can do this integration. Now this is one of the ways that I find more convenient and more easy to do, and there are a lot more ways that you can do this. So just go ahead and read through the documentation that you might find online on how to improve on this, but here you get the basic introduction to React. Now it is up to you to go and dive deeper and explore the Semantic Ui, or there are many libraries. We have Materialize UI, we have Material UI. So anything that works better for you, we have Ant-D. So anything that works better for you, just go ahead and do it. Now I think this is going to do it for this video. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to get notified if I drop something cool like this next time. See you around.